What's up, guys? Josh Pate here from 24/7 Sports, joined as I am this time every week by National Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, where else could we start? We got to head down to Knoxville. Tennessee recruiting, Jeremy Pruitt. They're rolling, and we've got more big commits on the horizon. Does not look like the Vols are stopping anytime soon.
Well, Tennessee's up to number 2 in the 24/7 Sports composite team rankings, and Coach Pruitt was on the radio this week, and you could see what he said on Go Vols 247, where he talked about their recruiting being smoking hot and mentioned that their players are the best recruiters on the staff, and now that they've been in Knoxville for a couple of years, the players know the staff well, and there's a chemistry between the staff and players, and the players are helping Tennessee roll on the trail. But what I would say to this, and that is certainly true, in the best programs, their players help do the best work, but it still starts with the staff. And Tennessee, when you look at the SEC, you know that Tennessee, Georgia, and LSU, those 3 head coaches aren't going to cheat recruiting at any point from the top down. They're going to set the tone. And you look at Tennessee staff, they have 3 24/7 Sports National Recruiters of the Year on staff right now. Jeremy Pruitt at the top won it. Brian Niedermeyer won it 2 years ago, and T. Martin won it when he was out at USC. So these are guys that are proven recruiters. And there's other great recruiters on the staff. Coach Ansley, who is placed high in the 24/7 Sports recruiter rankings as well over the course of his career. These are guys that are working it, and now, as Coach Pruitt said in the interview, almost all their time is devoted to recruiting. So you're putting these great recruiters at Tennessee and eliminating all other responsibility that they would typically have, and just say, go recruit. Well, man, these are the best guys in the country at recruiting. And when you talk to these guys in Tennessee's class, they talk about the relationship that they have with Tennessee staff. And the relationships are different. It's more than just hitting your top targets up, but it's about being captivating with them and saying stuff that registers with them and makes it feel like it's more than just they're doing their job. Hey, how are you doing? You catch the Jordan show on Sunday. These Tennessee coaches are really getting to know these young men, and it's paying off on the trail. And this isn't the first time that we've seen Tennessee recruit well under a coaching staff. What fires me up about Tennessee is not only are they recruiting well, but these guys have track records for player development over the courses of their career. And so these are highly ranked guys that are coming to Tennessee that I feel like are going to get developed and be great players for the Vols. And so a top 10 class last year, they have the number 1 class in the SEC right now. This is a Tennessee class or Tennessee football program that I think could really make some noise in the SEC over the next couple of years with the way they recruit. But what's going to give you the best chance to be uber successful on the field is what you do at the quarterback position. And Tennessee landed Harrison Bailey last cycle, who was a highly recruited quarterback out of Georgia. And they have one on deck here that we like a lot at 24/7 Sports. Our number 1 quarterback in the state of Texas, number 4 dual threat passer overall, top 100 recruit, Caden Salter. He's announcing his college decision on Mother's Day. Auburn, Baylor, and Tennessee are what I think is the top 3 after talking to him. And my crystal ball is on Tennessee. And he was the last recruit that Tennessee had on campus in person. And he spent about 9 hours before this coronavirus lockdown in Knoxville with Chris Wanke and Coach Chaney and Coach Pruitt. And he saw them practice. And he didn't get to do that at Auburn a couple days earlier or a day earlier whenever he was at Auburn on the same visit. And so I think Tennessee's in the driver's seat going into that decision. And there's been a lot of buzz about the Vols on the trail, number 2 class. They've landed difference makers at linebacker and on the edge and in the backfield and at wideout. But if you don't have that trigger man, it may not matter. And I think in back-to-back classes, Bailey and Salter, with Maurer the year before that, Tennessee's quarterback depth chart is getting into position where they can be really competitive there as well.
All right, Steve, it's happening again. Clemson making a move. Big happenings in the past 24 hours with the Tigers alone. So let's reflect on that and talk about where they stand and where they're headed.
Well, Clemson moved up one spot in the 24/7 Sports Composite Team Rankings to number 4 with the commitment from 5-star Will Shipley, the top all-purpose back in the top 247. Will Shipley chose Clemson ultimately over Notre Dame. Also strongly considered Stanford, North Carolina, NC State, where his parents went, and Duke, among others. But really a visit to Clemson in January for the Tigers Junior Day, spending time with all the blue chippers on campus. That was a loaded event, Josh. And Dabo Swinney talking about his vision for Clemson football over the next decade. He wants Clemson to be the best. This next 10 years for Clemson football, he wants it to be the best 10 years any college football program has ever had. And Will Shipley, he told me, hey, I won 2 state championships, about to win a 3rd. I'm used to winning. I want to go help Clemson win some more. And so Clemson adds Will Shipley to the fold. It's going to be a big month for them. I think that I've never felt better about my crystal ball than I do right now for Barrett Carter, another guy who's arguably the top player at his position in the country, a linebacker out of North Gwinnett, there in the Peach State where your roots are. Barrett Carter looking at Auburn, looking at Georgia, but I love Clemson's position. They have his teammate Jordan Hancock committed, and I think by the end of the month, I wouldn't be surprised if Barrett Carter, who is going to play in that Isaiah Simmons role of being able to do multiple things on the edge of that defense, I think Barrett Carter, there's a good chance he's in the fold for Clemson as well.
So now we have Garrettnussmeier committing to LSU. That's another pretty recent development, and I'm sure that sort of resets things with how the nation views Caleb Williams' recruitment. This has to be good news for Oklahoma, I would imagine, Steve.
Well, I think it's just another inch if you're like saying you feel good about Oklahoma, which I do. They've been my crystal ball pick since early in the spring. He took a visit to Norman in March. It was the last visit he was able to take. He took his parents. He took his some of his private trainers out there. And they had a fantastic multi-day experience with Lincoln Riley and his staff. And I think one of the reasons why they really like Oklahoma, in addition to Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray winning the Heisman Trophy and going number 1 overall. And look, that's the thing Caleb Williams and his family are looking for most in this process. Which school can develop me into being the number 1 draft pick when my time has come? And Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, can show them that they've already done it twice. But in addition to that, they're looking for a program where they feel like the teaching and the offense is tailor-made, and these are coaches that I can learn from. And I think that Caleb has spent a lot of time talking to Lincoln Riley, and he's very comfortable with the idea of learning from Lincoln Riley and playing in Lincoln Riley's offense. If you go back to the fall, LSU was the leader, and the relationship with Joe Brady and Coach Munoz, who went to Baylor, he felt the same way about those guys, and that he trusted those guys, that he could learn from them and understand the way they were teaching things and playing an offense that was uber successful. And now LSU can say, look, we just had the number 1 pick. We just had a Heisman Trophy. And they can still say that. But they love the university at LSU. Right now it's about learning about this offense and getting more familiar with Coach Linehan and some of the new hires that Coach Orgeron had to replace Coach Brady and Coach Munoz. And so they're getting comfortable there. LSU, they land Nussmeier, and that's no surprise. The crystal ball has been favoring LSU for a long time. For Garrett, he's in the boat, but LSU's been recruiting. LSU wants 2 quarterbacks in this class. If you talk to people around Baton Rouge, there's some concern that if Miles Brennan has a big year, well, not concern, they're hoping he has a huge year, but then there's concern that he could leave them thin on their depth chart and go pro with a big year. And they're telling Caleb, look, the talent level on our football roster is massive. The players that you'll have around you, the depth chart, we need 2 quarterbacks. And talking to Caleb's dad, he said the Nussmeier thing, the Nussmeier commitment, has no impact on their thought process with LSU. And he says there's been lots of open communication with LSU all the way through. So no surprise to them on Nussmeier, no surprise to them taking 2 quarterbacks. No surprise that Nussmeier on that as well, I would think. And LSU's also recruiting Miller Moss out west. I think it's more likely that Miller Moss stays out west, goes to UCLA, USC. But he also has Alabama in his top 4. So Oklahoma feel really good about it, but it sounds like they want to get down to LSU one more time and bring the parents and bring the private coaches and give them one final look before making a final decision.
Steve, we've got a really big weekend coming up because it's Mother's Day. So a lot of people are shopping, a lot of people sending virtual gifts and whatnot. But in our world, Mother's Day is going to be big for another reason. We've got so many major commitment dates lined up. So let's talk about them.
Well, let's start with Julian Simon, a top 247. He's in the top 100 of the top 247 athlete out of Washington State, who I really love, Josh. He had over 1,000 yards receiving last year as a junior. He's got 10 career interceptions. He's a two-way impact player for Tacoma Lincoln. And he's going to announce his college decision between USC, Washington, and Stanford. And if you look at the last 2 recruiting cycles, the Trojans wouldn't have stood a chance in this battle. But the crystal ball is with USC. I think a lot of it has to do with Dante Williams. But USC, they've made a lot of changes to their coaching staff. There is a lot of juice with this program right now. They have the number 8 recruiting class in the country. It's number 1 in the Pac-12. And Julian Simon, when he announces his college decision this coming Sunday, I think it's going to be in favor of USC. And USC had a big April. They're looking to have a big May right now, and Julian Simon could be the guy to get it rolling for them. Also, we talked about Caden Salter. We talked about those guys from St. Francis. DeKelp Crowdis is a 4-star receiver from Lexington. Frederick Douglass, I think he's going to stay in state and pick the Kentucky Wildcats. Benjamin Perry out of Chicago Mount Carmel, 9 interceptions as a junior. Minnesota, we talked about them earlier. They're the number 8 recruiting class in the country. Benjamin Perry's a top target for them. There are some that think he's going to end up in Minnesota. Scott Satterfield in Louisville being the other school fighting. Maybe he adds an offer or two before Mother's Day. He's a guy that's going to be shooting up in our top 247 player rankings when we update them later this month.
Really hot month ahead and no end in sight, and that is why you want to keep it glued to Steve Wiltfong, the Wiltfong Recruiting Whip Around. We hit you with it every week. Keep it locked on 24/7 Sports all week long for the very latest. Steve, thanks as always.
Thanks, guys.